Welcome to Yes Employment Services online training video series. Yes Employment Services is a nonprofit, community-based organization based in Thunder Bay, Ontario. We are funded by the government to deliver programs and services to job seekers and employers. This training video focuses on resume basics. You will be provided with tips and resume do's and don'ts. We will talk about resume types and basic structure and layout. The Yes website also has access to free resume templates and online resume resources. So let's get started with a true or false question. Resumes are business documents, so there's a single format and headings should be in a set order. True or false? That's false. There are different types of resumes, and you should use the one that highlights your skills, experience, and education in a way that focuses attention on your strongest attributes. For example, a reverse chronological resume lists your background in order by date, with the most recent information first. This type of resume is best used if you are looking for a job similar to those you have traditionally held and you have a steady work history. This would not be a good format if you were switching gears and taking your career in a new direction. This format should also be avoided if you have gaps in your work history or if you change jobs often. A functional resume is composed of skills, work experiences, and abilities as they relate to the position you're applying for. Emphasis is placed on what skills you have and what you are able to do rather than when you gained these skills. Use this format if you have little or no experience related to the position, but you do have strong skills that relate to the position being offered. A combination resume is a more creative approach to selling yourself. It highlights both your skills and accomplishments and also any relevant work experience. This is a great resume for recent grads hoping to break into their field. It covers up gaps in your work history, and it's ideal for entry-level candidates. So now you know which type of resume to use. Now what about the content? While we recommend flexibility with regard to which headings and in which order, there are some fixed items that go on every resume, and that starts with your contact information. So what do you include? Although many employers will call you for an interview, putting your email address on a resume will allow employers to contact you using their preferred method of communication. Make it easy for them to contact you. Make sure the phone number you list has voicemail, and make sure that you check your email frequently. The contact section is pretty self-explanatory. When listing your contact details, you should follow this order. First, your name. This should be the largest font on the page. Just your first and last name is required. A middle initial is optional. Next, your mailing address. Make sure you provide your full mailing address, including street address and apartment or suite number, rural route number, city and province. Make sure you include your postal code. If you don't know it, you can look it up online on the Canada Post website. Your telephone number follows your mailing address. Include the area code. Make sure that you have voicemail for the number you provide and that the message is appropriate for employer calls. Messages that say you are unavailable because you are hungover or out partying will result in an employer hang-up. Clean up your voicemail messages when you are job searching. Finally, provide your email address. Make sure this is appropriate as well. If your email address is partyboy@partyallthetime.com, you're not going to find any interview invitations in your inbox. One more point. Be careful not to accidentally put the contact information in the header. If you are applying online, applicant tracking systems may not be able to read the information posted in the header. So what's next? The headings that you choose and the order you put them in need to work for you. Don't use a template with fixed headings in a fixed order. If you do choose a template, make sure you can change the subheadings to suit you. It's good to start with an introduction. For entry-level positions, this may be a qualifications summary that offers 4 to 6 bullet points that highlight your strongest skills and qualifications. Make sure the skills you choose to highlight relate directly to the position you're applying for. If you are a more experienced candidate, the introduction can be more of a professional profile or career summary. Again, we are looking for brevity here. choose to highlight the experience that aligns you best with the position being offered. Now you need to think about the order of your subheadings and decide which ones to use. Your resume only has so much space, so think of each section as prime real estate. Everything you choose to include needs to be relevant. The first thing the employer reads should be the most impressive skills, experience, or education you have to offer. For most people, the first subheading will either be employment experience or education. If you are applying for a job that requires a diploma, degree, or special license, list that first. The employer wants to make sure that you have the mandatory qualifications before reading on. Make sure the headings you use make it clear that you have the required credentials. You may use the heading Educational Qualifications, for example, if you're applying as a registered nurse or a chartered accountant. If you are applying for a position as a lifeguard, you may use the heading Certifications, or if you just completed some specialized professional development courses, you could use a heading like Professional Training. If you have a lot of experience or skills related to the position you're applying for, you should list experience before education. Also, if you are a student who hasn't graduated yet, education should also be farther down the list. Be creative here and make sure the first heading allows you to feature your skills and experience in the most appropriate way. You could use the traditional employment experience heading or be more specific to what that experience is. For example, freelance work, military experience, or customer service experience. For entry-level applicants without paid work experience, your first subheading can fall outside the traditional experience or education headings. If you have a lot of volunteer experience related to the field, start with that. Again, you don't have to use the traditional volunteer work heading. Try to zone in on the specific work you've done. Headings like civic activities, athletic involvement, or community projects are some good examples. Once you have your most impressive heading complete, then go on to the next impressive, and so on down the line. If subheadings aren't relevant to your own personal situation, feel free to leave them off. Always include an education section though. Even if you're a high school student, you need to include your education. You don't need to identify your grade or that you're a full-time or part-time student. You just need to identify your home school and say that you are currently working toward your Ontario Secondary School diploma. Now a word about references. References are a good way for others to vouch for your credibility, competency, and professionalism. As a general rule, you should have 3 references secured and ready to submit. The best choices for references are former supervisors or co-workers. You want to choose individuals who can speak to your work performance. So if you don't have a direct employment-related reference, you could use a teacher, coach, or volunteer coordinator. Whether to put those references right on your resume is up to you. Some employers, especially those who want to make a quick decision for an entry-level position, like to see references right on your resume. For this type of position, sometimes a quick conversation in person or over the phone is the only interview you receive. With your references at the ready, the employer can then make a quick check and offer you the position. However, individuals who offer to provide you with a reference need to be properly respected. Always ask your reference before providing his or her name and contact information to a potential employer. Ideally, every time you hand a reference sheet to an employer, you should provide a heads up to your references that they may be contacted. If you're handing out 3 resumes a week over a 4-week period, that's a lot of potential phone calls. The only time an employer needs access to your references is when they are actually interviewing you and seriously considering you for the job. People often choose to be protective of their references and have them ready on a separate page if they are requested. Bringing this page with you to the interview is standard practice. There are additional resources, templates, tips, and articles about resumes on the Yes Employment Services website. We invite you to access these resources when you compose or rework your next resume.